My room's very dark.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and very warm welcome to this Lyceum night. My name is Jack Eckhart, president of the Danish Spiritual Association, and I'm stepping in tonight in the absence of Lawrence, as he's busy down the church, as there is the rally, spiritualism rally, all day tomorrow. So come and join the church tomorrow, or watch online, because it will be streamed online from the church tomorrow as well. But this evening we have a very experienced guest with us, Martin Colclough. So very warm welcome to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Jack. Good evening, everyone.
And Martin, asked Martin to come on tonight because we want to talk about education and training within mediumship and within spiritualism, and the importance of the education and things. But Martin, for a start, maybe you would talk a little bit about your good self and your organization as well.
Yeah, well, I actually started the training company back in 2014. It's tsfellowship, but in the near future that's going to change. But I can't say too much about it yet because we're still in the process of it. But I wrote 5 courses that covered a spectrum of spiritual, religious and life philosophy, spiritual healing, and working in the altered state within mediumship. Now, the reason I called it working within the altered state is because I managed to get all my courses recognized by an Ofqual recognized company. Now, for those who don't come from the UK, Ofqual is the recognized body that oversee, it's called the Office of Qualifications, and they oversee all qualifications that aren't in university. So they used to be called MVQs, then the QCFs, and now they're RQFs, Recognized Qualification Framework. And they took me on all those years ago, and it's been going strong ever since. And each year I've tried to write a new course. So over the years, there's now 12 courses online, and they're at level 2, which means you need a basic knowledge, but able to demonstrate your ability. So if you're doing mediumship, there's some questions. You don't have to write long essays, because it's that you're assessed by recognized tutors. When I say recognized tutors, I'm a tutor, but I'm recognized by Ofqual as a tutor. I've got a qualification in the UK that recognizes me as a trainer, and that's the level 3 award in education and training. And all our assessors are trained to a minimum of level 3 with assessing in the workplace. And then I'm qualified to level 4, which means I assess the assessors. So the process all along is all about teaching in a professional way and assessing in a professional way by UK recognized standards. And so at level 2, like I say, you need a basic knowledge. At level 3, you have to demonstrate your knowledge effectively. So each course has a section similar to level 2, but then you have to give a presentation to show. So it's basically, it's the first steps in being a teacher. So you give a demonstration for no more than 15 minutes, no less than 8, to show that you understand what you're talking about and what you've learned. And then at level 4, we've got 2 courses. One is spiritual ministry, and that's it. It links to another association that course does. And then the other one is the other level course is learning how to put on presentations, but also how to put on a minimum of a 2-day seminar. So you have to show that you can do a presentation, an in-depth presentation. So not like the others where it's 15 minutes. You would demonstrate for about an hour, so like a lecture, showing that you've got knowledge. And then you put on a 2-day seminar, and they're the level 4s. And they've all been recognized by a company called Focus Awards. They are the awarding bodies. I do give certificates, but when I say they're worth nothing, it's just a certificate from tsfellowship. The certificate that counts is the one that comes from an awarding body that on the bottom says recognised by Ofqual. So basically that's where I'm at the moment. And each year I try to freshen up the courses or write a new course. And that's where I am. And I've been doing that since, like I say, 2014. Last year I started a company or an association called the Association of Independent Spiritual Ministers. And to join that, you don't need to be a minister. You can be any religion, any belief system, but you can pass the ministry with tsfellowship, and then you go on to be ordained with the Association of Independent Spiritual Ministers. And each month we do one service, and that service follows the theme of a different religion. So far we've had Christianity, spiritualism, Hinduism, Islam, and last month's was Judaism. And we try to get somebody from one of those religions to give a talk on it and enlighten people. And some of them are members already, like the Judaism, the lady who follows Judaism, she is a minister with the Independent Spiritual Ministers, and she gave the talk on Judaism, and people really enjoyed it. And it's just to show people that there's more to being spiritual than a religion, and there's more to a religion than just being spiritual. And the emphasis being on the word spiritual. We can be religious. We're doing a talk soon, so I can't give too much away. We're doing a talk soon, religion or spiritualism. Sorry, religion or spiritual.
Yeah.
And getting people talking about whether we should be religious or spiritual, because a lot of people, and I'm not decrying any particular religion, but a lot of people say they're in a particular religion and then behave in ways that aren't very spiritual.
Yeah.
So our emphasis is trying to get people to be spiritual rather than just spiritualists or just Christians or just, we're not picking on any religion here. We're trying to unite people and get them talking to make it more of a collective, where like-minded people, basically, that all want the same thing, just being spiritual and without all. I mean, there's fighting in all religions. I'm sure countries know, other countries and other people know that there's fighting in all religions. And what we're trying to do is show people you can live together by understanding each other's religion instead of arguing whose religion's the best, whose God's the best. Some are monotheistic religions, some have got multiple gods, but I don't believe any God is better than another God, and I don't believe any religion is better than any other religion.
No, and I totally agree with you, and I do really like that approach to the religious part of spirituality, if we can put it that way. Years ago, I joined multi-faith arrangement where different faith systems with different religions all came together. We had a little a buffet and with different food, and everybody had a little presentation of their religion. And I think sometimes we forget a spiritualist. I don't know if you agree with me, but a spiritualist, and I believe that's in any religion, but a spiritualist, we often can be very narrow-minded. Very narrow-minded, and often putting it into the one truth. But sometimes maybe forget that within spiritualism actually is quite as a religion is quite open. That's why I became a spiritualist many years ago.
Yeah,
because there was space for me.
Yes, I understand that. I was very much the same all my life. I mean, I'm actually sitting in a bedroom very close to where my parents used to live, which is just down the road. So I've come back to the village where I was a child. And in that village, there was Baptist, Methodist, Church of England. And then just round the corner from me here is the Ebenezer Chapel, which is Christian, but a lot more relaxed. And as I grew up, we started at Methodist because my parents were Methodists. And I can remember saying to my father on a Sunday, I said, I don't want to go to the Methodists anymore. So he said, okay, you go to the Baptist. So I went to the Baptist till I was about 13.
Yeah.
And I said to my father, I said, I've had enough of this, Dad. I said, I want to be a Baptist. So he said, okay, you go to the Church of England.
Yeah.
There was no getting away from my religious upbringing. And because I served 24 years in the army, in the British Army, I've seen things that could make many people turn away from the idea that there is a God or there's a heaven or a spirit world.
Yeah.
I've seen lots of things, but nothing's ever shaken my faith that there's something after death, So whether we call it heaven or nirvana or paradise, depending on what the other religions call it, it doesn't matter what we call it. We're all going to arrive together. And I'm sure many people have heard of Anthony Hopkins, the famous Welsh actor. And my brother sent me one of his quotes the other day, and it started off, "None of us are getting out of here alive." so enjoy your life. And it's true. Life's too short to be arguing about whose religion is best, what rules and regulations suit their religion. We shouldn't have rules and regulations. We should, actually we should. But one of the Greek philosophers, can't remember his name, he said, without rules, there's anarchy. But we shouldn't need to be told how to worship. We shouldn't need to be told how to be spiritual. It should be by your everyday actions. And I know the things I've done wrong in life. And many times when I've sat saying my prayers, something new comes up that when I've done something wrong, and I say, can you add that to the list of things that I did wrong, but hopefully I've made amends for that, and I ask for forgiveness. And that's the Christian side of me, because I believe just like a father or a mother, any parent, sometimes your children are naughty, we often forgive them. We don't go on punishing them for the same thing over and over. So if there's a divine being that is a loving parent to all of us, then they must have that forgiving attitude as well. And I think it's in the Bible, it says whether it's 7 or 70 times, if you ask, forgiveness will be given. So, and there's lots of things. I've read so many books on religion. One, I remember I was in the army and I'd had a very spiritual moment in the first Gulf War where I was moved. So I went to speak to the Padre and he said, you've been touched by the Holy Spirit. Now, if that's what he wants to believe, that's fine. So I started reading lots of books and all these things come up, that we can ask for forgiveness, but we've got to forgive ourselves for it as well. So let's say, it sounds like I've argued with my wife, but I haven't. But let's say you have an argument with your wife, your partner, the person that you love and live with, and you say sorry. You've got to mean that in the bottom of your heart.
Yeah.
And it's the same when we ask for forgiveness. You can't just keep doing things wrong and then saying, praying to the Great Spirit, God, whatever we want to call them. You can't just keep asking for forgiveness if you can't forgive yourself. You've got to be able to accept the forgiveness and forgive yourself for doing it. And if you can do that, you'll find that you move on from whatever's troubled you at that time.
And just a short comment to people watching or listening out there. If any questions comes up, we will do our best to answer questions as well. So please put your questions or comments in the comment box below. So I can see here Amanda Price, a lot of people there from around the world, from Denmark, Sweden, UK, and different places. But I can see here, Amanda Price, you can meet more spiritual people at a bus stop than in our churches. Sad but true, being spiritual is not a religion. So talking a little bit what you were talking about, to be spiritual is one thing, to be religious is a slightly different thing.
Yes.
Definitely. And I was just thinking while you were speaking there about forgiveness and things. As we are familiar with the 7 principles, the 5th principles, not the 5th, it was, I can't remember if it's the 6th now. I just mixed them up in my head, but no problem. But we have this principle talking about we'll get the opportunity to evaluate our life when we're going to spirit. And sometimes I think maybe we should not wait until we go to spirit. Why not start now?
Yeah, and that is the 6th principle: compensation and retribution hereafter for all the good and evil deeds done on earth. And people seem to think that that's going to happen when they get to the spirit world.
Yeah.
Now, it's my belief that once we are responsible for our own actions, and that starts at childhood. I wouldn't like to say with age, because it's known fact that females mature quicker than males, and they probably say males never mature, big boys and the toys. But I agree with you, Jack, that it's no use waiting until you get to the spirit world. Then you find you've got to make everything up. It starts here. Yeah. And the compensation, I don't believe we go up and down a ladder. I believe we can stand still. But we taught different lessons, and as we're learning those lessons, we go in one step. Then if somebody does something wrong, you don't go down a step, you stand still, because you have to learn that lesson. And some people call it karma or whatever, but it's only karma on that one thing. If the majority of your life is lived in a good and spiritual way, then you will keep moving, you'll keep progressing. But then certain patterns keep coming back in your life, and you say, why am I keep getting this pattern? Well, you have to look at what's creating the pattern and then change whatever's creating it so that you learn that lesson. That's what we're here for. Yeah. We're here to learn a lesson. And if we don't look at the lessons that sometimes are as clear as the nose on your face, then it's going to keep repeating itself.
Yeah, and I believe I can only speak for myself, but I believe I can speak for many people at the same time that already in this life we have things that is repeating themselves because we are not taking the learning experience from the situation, and that's sometimes it comes down to taking that personal responsibility of our own actions.
Yes.
Pointing fingers and say, "Oh, Martin, it was your fault that this and this was going on to me," Yeah. But that's so easy, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of people look at that 5th principle.
Yeah,
you see personal responsibility, and a lot of people consider that to be just looking after themselves.
Yeah,
but actually, the point you just made is, oh, Martin, you're doing this wrong. If somebody doesn't point something out to someone that they keep doing wrong, then they're not taking personal responsibility. No. Because we're all moving. I always imagine us, and you see it in movies sometimes when they're all going to heaven, and they're on like a conveyor belt and they come in. I'm sure you've seen different films. All the souls are going to heaven and they're moving towards the ultimate, the gates, for an analogy. If we're all, it's like being in a traffic jam. We're all in the same thing. You can look left and right, and the man on the right could have a Mercedes, the man on the left could have a Porsche or a Jaguar, and you might be in a Mini Minor. It doesn't. Traffic lights don't discriminate.
No.
We're all in the traffic jam together, and that's what life's like. If you look at life as a traffic jam, we're all in this traffic jam, and we'll all move together, and we'll all stand still together. And the ultimate goal, I believe, that the Great Spirit wants is that we all learn these lessons and we all come back ready for the next time that they decide we've got to go and learn all these lessons. That might be on another planet, it might be in another universe, and that might sound crazy. But what's the point in just learning and then not continuing to grow? Which goes back to the education question. It's every religion is about learning, getting educated. It's not about learning 1 or 2 lessons, then telling everybody, oh, I'm a medium, or I'm a spiritual healer, and all the rest of it. If we're not prepared to put some work in and learn from those who've gone before them. And what I like to, an analogy for that is, would you go to a doctor who hadn't got qualifications? He told everybody he's a doctor. He's read lots of books. He's watched all the things on YouTube for brain surgery, heart surgery, eye surgery. But he's got no piece of paper that says, I'm qualified. You wouldn't go to that doctor.
No.
So I think with spiritualism, it's wise if people study. And I don't just mean going like to the Arthur Findlay College or your own centre or other centres. It's about continuing to learn and showing people what you've learned. So that when somebody comes, it's like a masseur, a hypnotherapist, they've all got certificates to say what they've done. They can't just call themselves what they say they are. And I think spiritualism and mediumship is the only profession. I call it a profession because, like you, I'm a professional medium. It's the only profession where we don't expect any standards. And then people complain about the standard.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I have often heard here in Denmark, I believe you have in UK and other places as well, Martin, people talking about, I'm born with the gift, so I don't need any training or education.
Yes. Yeah, well, the footballers at the top level, your Messis, Ronaldos, in the Premier League, the top league in Denmark, all the famous footballers, they've got a gift at birth. It's given at birth. Child prodigies, you see them 4 years old and they can play the grand piano. Yeah. That's a gift at birth. But they still have to go on and learn, how to turn the ball, how to dribble, what the chromatic scales are in music, for instance. Yeah. You can't just say to somebody, you're a concert pianist. They've, like in UK, I believe, somebody can correct me if they want, the highest qualifications come from the London School of Music. Yeah. And if you've got those qualifications, then people look at you in a different light as a musician.
Yeah.
And I think it's wise that everybody.
I think we have to remember, as you're talking about the professional footballer like Ronaldo, like the great pianist and things like that. They're born with a gift, they're born with a talent, but there's hours and hours of training, education, and things behind it.
Yeah.
To develop that gift.
Yeah.
And I think we have to look at that as well when we're looking at within spiritualism, within mediumship as well there. And I know you're doing a great job with the spiritual fellowship and the way you teach there, I know. So, Martin, do you have an idea? Because I can see here, Angela Foster's asked here, how close are we to having a degree in mediumship?
Good old Angela. Obviously, and I've spoken to Angela about it in the past, and obviously she's presented this so that people hear the answer. With the new venture that we're setting up, the next step, because our courses are recognised by an Ofqual awarding body. Once we can go to Ofqual, and we've tried twice, but we're not giving up. Once we've go to Ofqual and get them recognised, then we become the awarding body. Okay, so whatever the name of the company, let's say it's TS Fellowship. TS Fellowship then become the awarding bodies. And we then open centres and employ centres to do what I'm doing with Focus Awards. Okay. Once we can do that, we can then get professional course writers in. They can go to level 5, level 6, level 7, and these are equivalent. Level 7 is equivalent to a PhD. Level 6, I believe, is the degree what Angela's on about. So in my head, it's not that far away, but I can't say it's going to be December this year because there's so much work getting recognized by Ofqual, and you never know. Angela might be the person that gets it going because they say we need a subject matter expert. Now, you might say, well, why don't you do the subject matter expert? Then I can't run the training company.
Yeah.
You can't, you know, it's called a conflict of interests.
Yeah.
So everything within, and Angela knows because I encouraged Angela, and she's actually done the level 3, the level 4, and she's going through the level 5 in the teaching and awards in education and training. We're trying to get people that qualified so that when we say it's go, we've got people all over. I've already got lots of people who've got the same qualifications. So once we can get accepted by Ofqual, things will take off. But it's a difficult body to join. But if Angela's volunteering to be the subject matter expert, then we'll certainly put her forward when we apply.
Yes.
See, I can't see the questions on my screen, as you know.
No. But Margaret Challenger has one here. Says, "Hi, Martin. I'm finding that students only want to develop mediumship to give what they are saying messages. They don't want to study the mechanics of the mediumship or indeed spiritualism as a religion or pioneers. This seems to be the way mediumship is heading. Do you agree?"
Yeah, well, Margaret's another friend of mine. We chat, I won't say regularly, but we chat at least 3 times a year. And they don't look at the whole thing. You see, they look at it as a system of promotion. So they start off, and you all want to be a medium. Then the next thing you know, I want to be a trance medium. And then the next thing, they want to be a physical medium. And they haven't studied mediumship, the mechanics of mediumship, which Margaret's put there. They haven't studied the mechanics of mediumship, but they want to move on to the next level as soon as possible. If you don't understand the basic mechanics, then you can't move on to trance mediumship. And I always call it trance. I never call it trance because I could stare at this camera and be in trance. It's not mediumship. But everybody keeps going, oh, I want to do trance. Then go and stare at the mirror and you'll go into a trance.
Yeah.
But if you want to do trance mediumship, you've got to study the mechanics of mediumship. If you want to do physical mediumship, you've got to study the mechanics of mediumship. And there's a couple of my guys who've given talks quite often. We sit on a Tuesday. They say there's only one kind of mediumship, but 2 kinds of phenomena. So there's mental phenomena and physical phenomena. And it's all about understanding what it is to be a medium. Forget what you want to do. Let the spirit world do with you what they want to do.
Yeah.
Because you might be going in a completely different direction. And in one of the books I've got on photographic mediumship, it's just gone out of my head at the moment. In there, the guide is explaining, a guide comes through and talks to one of the sitters, and the sitter wants to know why his wife isn't coming through. And the guide says, your desire is stopping it. And that's the same with all mediumship. The more you desire something, the more you're stopping it, because it's an experiment on both sides of the divide. The veil, call it what you will. It's an experiment in both worlds. So if this, let's say you're sitting for physical phenomena, but you want a certain phenomena, the spirit world, you're desiring it so much, you're stopping it happening.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like you get the no on the platform, then you start going, oh God, I got to know. You've stopped focusing on your mediumship. You're focusing on the no. Yeah. Mediumship's all about a focus on where you want to be in that journey. And it's no use. And I've said this many times when I used to teach at the Arthur Findlay College. You can't have an ability that's here and set your expectation up here, you know?
Yeah.
You've got to be close to each other. It's nice to have an expectation, but keep your expectation near enough in line with your ability. You can't have a low ability And that's not insulting anybody. We all have to begin somewhere. But you can't have ability down here, an expectation up here, and expect to be a wonderful medium.
Yeah.
It's about the whole journey.
Yeah. And so I think what we often see is, okay, I can go and have a week or two at the college or somewhere else, and I believe my level is up here. I'll start my own school, start teaching. But we're coming back to, how can you teach if you don't understand the mechanics?
Yeah.
So basically, I usually say, well, everybody can give a message, but not everybody understands how they're doing it.
That's correct. And I'm a prime example of that, Jack. Because when I started, I remember the day it started. It was the 4th of January, 1997. And it was about 9 o'clock in the evening. My father had literally just passed to the spirit world. And I started hearing voices in my head, as clear as we are talking now.
Yeah.
And it was telling me to do things. And I didn't understand what it was. And obviously we went to the hospital. There's voices in my head telling me to do things. Saw my father, he was laid out. And then on the way home, I remember the voice kept saying, go to the church. Go. And I thought, what the on about? Go to the church. Because I've always had an interest in spiritualism and mediumship, but didn't know there was a spiritual religion or spiritualist churches. So I decided then to speak back, and I said, you know, I've got to get home and see my children and tell them that the grandfather's passed away. So talk to me tomorrow. I didn't know who I was talking to. Talk to me tomorrow and we'll have a conversation. So the next day I'll see my children, and true to their word, go to the church, go to the church. So I was like, where's this coming from? So I said, you know, I've got to go to my mother. She's just lost her husband. I promise you, after the funeral's done, we'll talk and we'll see where it goes. So I went to see my mother. On the way home, it kept saying, go to the church. And I missed my turning. It was that in my head. And I drove past one of the local spiritualist churches. Now, it used to be a Methodist church. It's where my parents got married. I looked, I went, oh, the church. It's now a spiritualist church. Yeah. So my father would have known that church. So obviously, and then it came, my mediumship came so fast. It was like bang, bang, bang. I could give people messages, but I hadn't got a clue where it was coming from.
Yeah.
So then the church president asked me to go and do a service at one of the local Christian spiritualist churches with her. I did the service. I was giving information that I still remember to this day. It was that vivid. And I've done thousands of services in my time now in the 26 years, and I'm giving it out. So then they wanted to book me. And I said to the president, Elaine Bagshaw, I said to Elaine, I said, you know what, Elaine? I said, I can give a message. I said, but I don't know where it's coming from. So I need to go and learn now. And that's when if the Christian spiritualists had got hold of me then, I'd have been a Christian spiritualist. But I was in an SNU church and I started studying all their courses and learning about it, learning my trade. And then I was a novice then, or a fledgling as sometimes they called. I was a fledgling then for 18 months. So it was like 2 years before I went on the platform, even though I say it myself, I was giving wonderful evidence to everybody, names, addresses. I mean, I went in one church and there was a picture of Gordon Higginson. I'd never met him. And I looked at the picture and I said to myself, who's that? And the voice said to me, that's Gordon Higginson. So I went up to the president. I said, excuse me, is that Gordon Higginson? He goes, yeah, did you know him? And I said, no, somebody just told me that it was Gordon. Yeah. I said, I was in the army when Gordon passed the spirit world. I said, I'd never met him. So by learning my trade, that's what got me interested in becoming a teacher myself, so that people didn't fall into this trap. And you've seen it at Stansted. Lots of people go, they do 2 or 3 weeks, and then they're advertising Stansted trained and I'm a medium.
Yeah.
And they've had 3 different associations with 3 different tutors, 3 different opinions, although, most opinions are similar, but they vary on how we teach it. And then they call themselves a teacher, and they're charging as much as a Stansted tutor,
Yeah.
Which to me, it's not right. But if they're making a living and people like them, then that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, it I believe comes down to the individual, doesn't it? But I think, in my understanding and my belief, to have the knowledge, to have the proper training, to have the understanding of the mechanics, is to me essential before you start any teaching.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah. So
They asked me
yeah.
to take the circle. I'd been going to the church about 3 years, and I was well known in the church because I was going every day. Every day it was open, I was going to the church, circles, home circles, with different people. And one day, the beginners, I was in the intermediates, and I hate those titles: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. We're all medium, different stages of development. But for the sake of the conversation, I was in the intermediate group, and the president said, "Well, you take the beginners because the tutor hasn't turned up." And when I sat there, I thought, "What am I going to do?" I said yes. That was a little bit of ego.
Yeah.
And I said yes, but then I thought, "What am I going to teach them?" I hadn't got a clue. No. Even after 3 years, I'd had all these lessons myself, but I hadn't put my own energy into creating my own exercises. And now I come up with a new exercise every week because I teach every week online, and I have to come up with a new exercise because the same students I've had for 3 or 4 years, and I can't keep teaching them the same thing. So then when you become an experienced tutor, an exercise will pop in your head, you will muse it over, and you can always put it by somebody else. Normally I put mine by Tim Abbott, who's a mutual friend. Yeah. And he'll say, "Well, why didn't you try this? Try this." And then you put in two experienced people's energy into it. And it's worked both ways. I've given Tim exercises, and he'll go, "I could do it this way, I can do it this way." And I'm sure you've done the same.
Yeah, definitely.
It's only when you start feeling your own energy in the exercises and how you want the student to react that you'll know you're teaching correctly.
Yeah.
You can't just facilitate. I always say to my students, when you've done this exercise, this is how I felt, but I would expect you to be able to achieve this, this, and this. So they know what they've got to achieve. And if they don't feel bad, because I'll assess, say, well, next time, try this. They haven't failed.
No.
Next, you don't have to do it my way. Try this next time, or go away, think about it, put your own energy into the exercise and see what you come up with. And the next time you teach them, they go, "I tried that. Can I show you again this week?" And they do it. And because they put some energy into it, they've had to think about the exercise. They've learned the mechanics of that exercise, what the tutor wants and what they need to deliver. And that's what the teaching qualifications, myself, and we already mentioned Angela, that's what that teaching teaches you to do. Those courses teach you to do that. Yeah.
And somebody mentioned something about this you're talking about here, that should the students become a copy or a product of the school they're going in, or should they be individual? And I agree with you. We should, as tutors, have, and we can only do that if we understand the mechanics and if we understand the teaching, how it works. We should look at the individual students' abilities and the strengths and the weaknesses, and as you say, that they don't fail, but they're getting an experience.
Yes, I dread to think of somebody saying, "Martin Colclough taught you." So answering that lady or gentleman's question, I don't expect them to be like me. I'd absolutely loathe it. And many times when I teach, because of the way I teach, the students already thought about it. And as long as the end product is what I've tried to teach them. So let me think of an analogy. So we're sitting in the trance state, and the guide would start speaking, but then he's going to let a loved one from the spirit world come forward and speak in the first person instead of the second person through the guide. It's speaking the first person to the recipient. Now, they'll start thinking about that. Your students will start thinking about that, because that's like high intermediate to advanced exercise. But you'll see your students start thinking about it. And that's when they think about it, they're taking the tutor away from it. They're doing what they know they can do. And the end product might be the same. So I might say in that exercise, and the end product is, I'd like you to give the recipient a message from their loved one via in the first person, and then they achieve it. And I don't expect them to do it 100% my way. I give them the tools. It's like if you were a car mechanic and you said, Martin, give me a 10 millimeter socket head, and I give you a 9 millimeter. You're not going to shoot me down for that, would you? Pardon the pun with 9 millimeter, by the way, complete by mistake. You just say, no, that's good. You went to the right toolbox, but now can you get me the 10 millimeter? And then that makes the student look and they go, God, it says 9 on site. Look, it says 9. Sorry, Jack, there's the 10 millimeter. And you get on and do the job. You've taught me, not by being aggressive. You just said, Martin, that's a 9 millimeter. I wanted a 10 millimeter. Just go and have another look and check in the box. You'll see a 10 millimeter. It's the next one down. And that's how we should teach a mediumship. So that the student is developing in their own way with our guidance. And we don't start teaching really a mediumship until the student can't do it. And that's when you've got to guide the student, not take over like some tutors do. They say, well, look, the mother's here and she's telling me this, because all you do then is destroy the student's confidence. So I can't do it, but my tutor can. So you guide them and you ask them, well, you said you've got a lady, but that lady's standing behind you. What's that lady telling you now? What's that lady showing you? And then they start looking for it. And you're not making them a clone of yourself. You're actually giving them the tool. You're giving them the socket head, then the attachment bar and the socket, the wrench. You're giving them everything so that they can do the job. I just got Sue Townsend here, reference to training.
It was her putting that question up, if it was important for mediums to work in their own style or within the format of the foundation.
Oh, right. So I can answer that, yes. If you decide to enroll with a TS fellowship, we don't give you a set thing. We tell you what the exercise is, and you show us how you do the exercise in your own way. Even the assessors are taught to assess the criteria. So let's say off the top of my head, one is demonstrate the difference between psychism and mediumship. So the tutor sets a lesson. Now, there's lots of tutors, and they might all set a different lesson. But as long as the student demonstrates that they understand the difference between psychism and mediumship, they pass, because that's the criteria. That's the learning outcome. It's not about you must do it this way. You must do it this way. It's the student's got the freedom to demonstrate it how they want to demonstrate it, as long as it's psychic and as long as they can show when they change to mediumship. And we've had lots of success with that, with students from Turkey, Saudi Arabia, all over, Scotland, Ireland, America, Canada, and they've not one person's demonstrated the same exercise once, because they all do it differently. That's what we encourage, is the individuality of every medium. In fact, I have a mnemonic which is called Individual Mediumistic Experiences, IMEs. I expect my students to have an IME, an individual mediumistic experience. And I'll tell people, if it's an older exercise, I'll say, when I did this exercise, because I always try my own exercises, when I did this exercise, this is what happened for me. The learning outcome is this. Let's see what you do. They don't have to replicate me. They have to show that they've understood the exercise and they can produce it themselves. And have their own. And it might be very different to my experience with the same outcome, or it might be exactly the same as my experience. But every student is encouraged to have an IME, individual mediumistic experience.
Yeah, and I think I like the way you're talking about the tools as well. That's my language there, because I'm always talking about I can't as a tutor I can't make anybody a medium, but I can give them a toolbox, and I can give them a lot of tools to fill in that toolbox.
Yeah.
Then they're up to them to spend the time to working with the tools, learning how to work with the tools.
Yeah. That's that. I use that same analogy, Jack. It's,
Yeah,
great minds think alike.
yeah,
And I can remember once teaching at Stansted, and I said, when you see a carpenter in most countries, he wears a belt,
yeah,
and you'll see the apprentice, and the apprentice might have a screwdriver and a hammer. When you see the tool master, his belt is weighing him down because he's got a hammer, a pair of pliers, 2 screwdrivers, 3 chisels, maybe a little saw, and he hasn't got that tool belt on day one. He's got
no,
that tool belt when he learned to master each tool. And that's why the apprentice only has 2 tools, because that's all the master trusts him with at the time. So by learning through structure, you get lots of tools. But always, and I'm going to answer Sue there, always keep in your own individuality, because that's what shines through. And I won't mention anybody by name, but years ago, people recognized students by who taught them.
yeah,
Quite a famous medium, and they taught all these people,
yeah,
and they knew, everybody could say who their tutor was.
yeah.
I don't think anybody could say they were a student. I don't believe I've got students. I teach students,
Yeah,
but they're not my students. They've been loaned to me and I always say that in my mentorships. I don't expect £3,000, £4,000, £6,000. If you can come on Monday, you come on Monday. If you can't come on Monday, you spend your time with your family. But when you come prepared to work.
Yeah, yeah, and I know from my own good self, during the years I've been teaching, I've always recommended my students go and try other tutors as well. Have different experiences, get different tools as well.
Yes.
And don't be a product of me, but be a product of yourself.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're a bit lower now.
Okay.
Now you turn it off. we can't hear you now, Martin.
My mic turned itself off. Is that a sign?
Okay.
No, it was a technical hitch.
Yes. Yes. We have one here saying there are a number of different awarding bodies and organizations that offer accreditation for mediumship and healing, etc. So many individuals want to develop the mediumistic, psychic, and healing faculties. My concern is that many don't work on the spiritual unfoldment of self. Do you think more needs to done across these bodies to highlight the importance of working on self? So many want to focus on the mediumistic development and neglect the inner work. What are your thoughts, Martin?
Yeah, I totally agree. Again, when we're teaching the students, and it's down to the individual tutors, but we try to get people to understand who they are themselves. And the problem is, people know now in this modern time that they can make a living from mediumship, and they look at the more experienced people. I mean, I've been doing it 26 years. I know Tim's something like 35 years, and Margaret and her husband are probably a lot longer than that. And they look at us and they think, we started yesterday. Oh, well, they're doing it. You can do it. And that's not the way to do it. So when people say to me, I'd like to be a professional medium, what's it like? And I say, well, it's hard work. It's long hours in airports, hours and hours in your car. I said, but the important thing is, have you got enough work to be a professional medium? And they don't think of that. They think people are just going to employ you because you say you're a professional medium. So I try to get people to look at themselves, as the question was, to look at themselves. Where does it come from? Where within them is it coming from? Is it from the heart? Is it from the soul? Where's this desire coming from? And until they can answer that question, then they're not working on themselves. They're just working on mediumship. And I'm sure every tutor that's watching this knows that they've had students that possibly won't get anywhere with what they're trying to do. But over the years, I've guided so many people and said, you should try healing mediumship, because I'm aware of it, and talking to them about that and getting them to think about it and go within. Because we tend to look at other forms of mediumship as second-class citizens. But anything you do for the spirit world doesn't make you a second-class citizen. It's all for the greater good. That I'm laughing at that because it's in a film that me and my wife like, and it's nothing to do, but it is for the greater good. And you should be teaching your students through meditation. I've worked with tutors who say, I never meditate. I try to sit. I'm a busy person, so I can't sit every day. But when I'm on a walk, I'll do a meditation. Before I sit for my trans circle on a Tuesdays, I'll do a meditation. Before I come up with an exercise for a student, I'll sit and meditate. So that I'm going within. And whether it comes from the spirit world or my higher self, it's because I've worked on myself. So I try to encourage students. So after that long answer, basically, yes, we should work on ourselves as well as your mediumship.
Yeah.
So you understand yourself. I've seen mediumship cause a lot of psychological problems with some people.
Yeah.
They go on course after course after course after course, and they're bombarded with different answers, different methods, because every tutor's different.
Yeah.
So one tutor will say, you do it this, try it this way. Another tutor will say, try it that way. Another tutor, and they never give themselves time to practice. They go into overload, and then they end up a wreck. I've seen people spend thousands and thousands of pounds on it, and they're never going to be a medium because they don't work on themselves, which answers the last question, and they don't work on the mediumship. They just think by attending courses, they become a medium.
Yeah.
You won't.
No, I agree with you. It's a lifetime process, isn't it? To become a medium. It's not, and as we talked about earlier, it's not just a week or two at Stansted or a couple of weekends in a church or where one center. It's a long process. It's a personal journey in many ways, and on many levels. I can see we have our fellow friend Tim with us tonight as well. So he says here, evening, Jack, evening, Martin. I witnessed when mediums go into trance and bring a loved ones of the clients through. However, this seems to be quite rare. Why do you think this is?
Good evening, Tim. Thanks for joining us. My take on that would be the fear within the mind of the medium. So what they do is they listen to the exercise, and then they start focusing on the exercise, which we said earlier, not on the end product. The idea is to focus on what you're doing. You know the exercise is explained to you. So then your focus should be on, first of all, in that instance, is going into the altered state that we call the trance state. Then it's to connect with the spirit world. And if you use the analogy of what I said earlier about you bring your own guide first, and then it's in the third person, but then you ask that guide to allow someone from the spirit world to come forward. The student that struggles is focusing on getting the loved one instead of focusing on the process. The loved one is the end of the process. So I think that's what it is. It becomes fear. And, I've got to please my tutor, got to please the tutor. You don't have to please the tutor. The tutor's pleased with you anyway. Otherwise, they wouldn't be teaching you. So I believe, Tim, that it's the student focusing on the end product, not the whole process. And you go through it, and I'm teaching my grandmother to suck eggs with Tim Abbott, DSNU. You go through each one step at a time. You allow it to take place. You can't force mediumship. You can't close your eyes and squeeze as if you're trying to make your face go red or something. It's about relaxing into the art and allowing the process. So in that, for me, it would be, if I was a student, I'd relax. I would send out my thoughts to the spirit world. First of all, say, you've heard the exercise. This is what I'd like to happen. And then you allow the process to take place. And then there's no need for fear, because if you're fearful, what you're saying is you're doubting the spirit world. And that's why it's so rare. People are doubting the spirit world because the tutor's given them something that they think is beyond them. And the tutor knows that it isn't beyond them because they've taught them, like me with some of my students, 3 or 4 years. When I say my students, I go back to it. They're only my students as long as they want to stay with me. They can leave tomorrow. I don't own anyone. So that's why I think it is, Tim. The students basically not listening to what the process is and then following that process.
Yeah, and I can only agree. I know for my good self some years ago now, but I have a few times have had a loved one through through my trance mediumship, and it's been amazing. But it wasn't like it was intended. It just happened within the session. So yeah.
See, I focus mostly on trance mediumship.
Yeah.
And every Tuesday, I run a circle. And some Tuesdays, I always prepare beforehand, and I always have a bath because I've normally been on a run before. So I'm in the bath and I send my thoughts out. And before I've got out of the bath, I know who's coming. And it'll be one of 3 guides, because sometimes they do, although it's a healing circle, sometimes one comes and does philosophy, which is Arthur. Then there's Edward and George. Edward was a physician in the 1800s, and George was a veterinary surgeon. And depending on what they're doing, like one night we were sitting, and I was sitting in the bath, and he came to me, he said, there's a lady and she's just had shingles. So then I've got to trust that. So when I go in the room then, and sometimes there's 8, sometimes there's 12, and I'll say, one of the ladies has just had shingles. And only one person puts a hand up, yes, I had shingles. I said, well, Edward will be coming to you tonight. So, and then I can just relax then, because Edward's already told me in the bath that there's a lady with shingles. There's only one lady with shingles. One night there was a lady, she'd had an aneurysm weeks before, and he said, there's a lady with an aneurysm and she's still suffering. I went in there, somebody's got an aneurysm, only one lady. Another lady suffering with her eyes. There's a lady in her right eye has got a lot of pressure behind her eye. One lady. So then I can just relax, because if I don't believe what Edward's just told me while I'm preparing for the circle, why am I doing it? I can't go in there and say, I think somebody's got a bad eye, because then I'm doubting, and this is sort of answering Tim's question, I'm doubting then what the spirit world have told me, that there's somebody with a bad eye. That lady was supposed to have glasses for driving. After that evening, she still doesn't need glasses for driving. Because you just trust. Now, if I hadn't trusted, the energy wouldn't have been the same. And she might need glasses. But as it was, I completely trusted. Let Edward talk to her. He went through all the symptoms. Everything was correct. And she went to the opticians for the glasses, said, I can't see. So he tested her eyes again. She said, you don't need glasses. And there's been lots of instances like that. So all mediumship is about trust. Knowing you've got to know your work. You've got to know what you're doing. But it's about trusting. And if you don't believe each time you do it, then you don't really believe in the spirit world. Even if you're feeling as low, if you believe in the spirit world, they will never let you down.
Yeah. And I can only agree with you. But Martin, I have to trust my clock as well. So it seems like we are coming to an end of this chat. But thank you. Before we will stop, if people want to find the Spiritual Fellowship, where do they need to look for it?
It's tsfellowship.co.uk.
Yes. And I can say to everybody that I know, Martin, you was planned on a course earlier this year, was postponed. So, but I'm sure Lawrence is ready to put another date in with you.
Well, Lawrence has been a big help. It's no secret. I've got prostate cancer stage 2. And Lawrence has been through it, and he understood when I told him that I needed to get my mind together. And so my work's limited at the moment. But he understood, and I said, cancel it. He goes, no, we'll book it for another day when, because he's been through it. He said, we'll book you for another time when you're better.
And just to tell people out there, Martin is coming to Poole at some times when they have sorted out a new date. So so whenever you're ready, Martin. And I can say as well that a lot of things is going on in Poole Christian Spiritualist Church. A lot of workshop courses, and from today and until next Sunday the 16th at midnight, there's a 10% discount on every course you book. And those that already have booked, you are not. You will still get your. You will still get your discount as well when you're coming for your course. And as you can see, Lawrence is in the background there, saying hi from 3 mediums and a bottle of wine in Poole. I know he's sitting there with Susan Brotherwood, Stephen Trolland, and who's more there? But they are the 2 staying for the night, and they will all 3 be a part of the Spiritualism rally tomorrow in the church. So come down the church. It start about 10 o'clock with a service, and it will go on through all day. If you can't go to the church, you will be able to watch online here where you're watching this live as well. There will next year in Poole, a new education regime will start up there as well, with qualified tutors coming there. So just what's the Poole Church Facebook site, website, and everything will be announced there. But for now, Martin, thank you very much for joining us this evening, and all the best for you with your journey. And I know we had a little chat before, and we'll have a short chat after here as well. But I know you are positive about everything, and
yes, definitely.
And I think that's the spirit we need to keep within our life, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Martin, thank you very, very much. Thank you everybody out there joining in. So next Lyceum is in a week, next Saturday, same time. And Lawrence is saying Jack and Martin. So thank you everybody, and we'll say good night. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Give somebody you love a hug.
Yeah.